welcoming our new associate, J.D. Broder, who most of you met this afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ron.
We need to start with a roll call of the members. So just give your full name when I call out your name. Michael.
Michael Wise here.
Steve.
Steve McAllister here.
Carolyn.
You're muted, Carolyn.
You're muted, Carolyn.
Okay, Carolyn Ivory here. I thought I was in.
Okay. Madonna.
Madonna Marr here.
And J.D.
JB Broder is here.
Okay, and I'm Ron Magellani. Our first order of business is to reorganize. We need to elect a chair and vice chair, and don't we have a clerk too, don't we, Chris?
I'm sorry, Ron. I don't remember, but why don't we select one tonight just for good measure?
All right, I'll look then for nominees.
I would like to nominate Ron as our chairman.
Second.
Well, thank you. Anyone else? And for vice chair?
I would like to nominate Steve McAllister.
I'll second
I
that.
found out about this afternoon, so.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right, and clerk?
I'd like to nominate Carolyn Ivory or Michael Wise. No, I'd like to nominate Carolyn Ivory as clerk.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Uh-oh.
I move the slate.
All right, all in favor?
You have to roll call vote, Ron. Do you want me to call the members or you go ahead?
All right, Michael?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
Madonna?
Aye.
And I also. All right, we'll go ahead and start the public hearing then. And we have in front of us a request from Justin Henderson regarding property at 135 Hurlburt Road. He's appealing the cease and desist order from the building inspector. And Justin, are you here?
Yes, Ron, Ron, if you can see your panelist screen, you'll be able to see folks there. And if you click your participants at the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and promote the appellants so you can see them. And I'm also going to promote our town council, David Dineski.
Oh, thank you.
So, Ron, whenever you want to start, there's Abigail and Justin. So,
Very good. Why don't you go ahead, and what we're interested in particularly are your reasons why you feel that the building inspector was in error in issuing this order.
oh, you're muted.
We can't hear you though.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. You'd think after a million Zooms, I'd be able to get this right. So the rationale is essentially that we're not using this property as a commercial venue as such. We are operating it as a short-term or long-term rental property, which to my knowledge is completely within the bounds of legality within the town of Great Barrington. We do allow weddings, but they're not true commercial ventures. They're family gatherings, sometimes intimate, sometimes a little bigger than intimate, but they're not cover charge events. We have never, nor have intended ever to charge people for alcohol or anything like that. I mean, I'm totally willing to share the contracts that we've entered in with people who stay at our places and who have weddings. We've never had any other type of event but a wedding there, which is essentially just a family party. And it's not truly considered a commercial venture. It's something that's been going on in America and private homes since the beginning of this country, and in particular in New England.
We had our wedding there. I grew up in the house.
I was married there with my wife, happily still, 10 years past, 7/7/11. I believe the first wedding that I've heard of having was a jazz player that my father-in-law allowed to have a wedding there when my wife and her family grew up there. And it was like 35 years ago. And this is not something that's going on with alarming frequency. We've had one this year. I think we had two last year. I think in total, since we purchased the property in 2017, we've had four. I think I read the letters from the abutters, and they're filled with slanderous and false allegations. I also have a true problem. I know this isn't the time, but there was a site visit today at 5:30 for board members, and no private citizens were invited to my house, and they were all trespassing. And that's an audacious and inappropriate use of a town function to come and trespass on property, which is kind of ironic that they're alleging that our guests are trespassing, which is not happening. If you guys actually saw the properties, they're separated by a nasty aisle of brush, which is surely filled with ticks, and nobody's going over to those properties. This is just false. And I'm not sure what's happening here, but this is not a big party venue. This is a single family home that we have allowed to have our guests have weddings there. And it's not because we're marketing this heavily and pushing this on the knot or anything like that. People are asking us to have weddings there because it's a great place to have a wedding. And I truly don't believe it disrupts the life and the style of living for people in any real way. So I think the use of a commercial venue is a little bit of a misnomer here. And that's not really, I don't have any aspiration to do that. I have no problem saying, hey, we'll never allow any gathering there that's not a wedding. But it's essentially just part of renting out our house.
But they've been small family weddings. We've never had over 150 people for a wedding. So
yeah,
All right.
in summary, I think it seems like kind of a strangely targeted action against our property in particular, perhaps because we have a few neighbors who feel they have a right to tell us what to do with our property. And then trespass on it today with everyone as witnesses.
They use our driveway to get to Cornwall, the back.
Yeah, and that's an illegal easement. Nobody has the right.
Anything. We've never complained about that.
Our property manager's there all the time. Anyone could reach out to us and talk to us in any way, but instead we've been maliciously targeted and paper whipped in this respect. And I don't understand is the movement here to restrict anyone in Great Barrington from ever allowing a wedding on a piece of private property? Because that just seems anti-American in essence. And it just doesn't make sense to me. And whether we can or cannot, I mean, it's not the end of the world to us, but this does seem like these abutters have used this, tried to hijack this forum to attack us on several levels, all of which are slanderous and false. We've never once charged anyone for liquor we've never sold anyone alcohol in our lives.
Alcohol.
So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in these letters. It's just ridiculous, frankly. And I think it's not really even germane to the point of allowing a wedding there. So the real issue with the appeal on the C&D is that it's been misclassified what we're doing there. And it's taking it into a different genre of commerce outside of what a short-term rental is.
All right, thank you. Do we have questions from members of the board?
You're muted.
Michael, you're muted.
I have a couple. You said you've had 4 weddings there since you have been the owners of the property. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Were you present for any of them?
My property manager was present for all of them, who's my sister-in-law, who actually stays at the
Okay.
property when it's not being rented.
What did the parties pay for those weddings?
They
Pay you for
paid,
those weddings?
they paid us an event fee on top of our short-term rental fee.
Which is how much?
It varied
Which is
from
how much? From what to what?
2,500 to 7,500.
Thank you. That's all I need.
Other questions?
I have a question. It was one of the letters that said that after the cease and desist order, you still had engagements going on there. Is that correct?
No, it's not. The town pulled the tent permit, and we told the venue that had been booked for 8 months prior to that they had to move the venue.
And they moved it
And
to
they did.
a farm down the road.
And they did. And you know what? They rented our house and they rented another house, and they had a family gathering that was not a wedding. And I don't know, is there anything inappropriate with that? I mean, some of these letters talking about pool parties, and this is a really fuzzy line, you guys. So what if 4 families rent our house that can sleep 12 people? I don't think there's anything wrong with that or illegal. It's not just that I think, I'm fairly certain there's no laws against it. And are we alleging that people aren't allowed to go to the supermarket and then drink wine with their family by the pool? I mean, I think it's getting into a point where there's really an attempt to overstep the kind of regulation you can do to people's rights with their private property.
David, would you be good enough to weigh in on this as to what the law actually, how the law actually reads?
Mr. Chair, I think there are 2 issues that are being addressed here. There's the rental of property, which in my view is aside from the issue that's before the board. The issue I think was probably gotten at by Member Wise's questions, and that is the property being used for the purpose of holding events, or is it being used as a venue for events? It's not just that persons are staying there. It's that these events, the weddings, are being held there. And that, in my view, a separate issue, and the one that has raised the permissible use or permitted uses under the zoning bylaw question, and then became the basis for the desist order. And that is the issue in front of it. That's aside from the rent property, for example, of persons staying there for the weekend and 10 people sitting in the backyard. We're talking about what was identified, what's in the record before you with respect to holding of a large gathering and the payment of a fee for the use of the property for that purpose.
That makes a lot of sense to
Further
me.
questions from board members?
Well, I guess one of the things I'm wondering is, what is a short-term rental? I mean, is that night?
No, we have 7-day minimums.
7-day minimum, okay.
Further questions?
Theoretically, you could have 52 such gatherings a year or more, right? Yeah, it's 52.
I mean, sure, presumably, but we've got 4.5 years of history, and there's nothing of the sort going on like that. But we've averaged 1 a year. And really what I was asking for was permission to allow these events to occur. And the fee, the particular of an event fee is a really fuzzy line too, because we could just charge more for the rental and call it not an event fee. And I'm not interested in skirting the law. You guys tell me we can't have weddings, we will not. The town weighs in on that and says, no, we have no interest in doing anything outside of the bounds of what is legal and right. So we're not going to skirt that, but I do see that the topic of an event fee is pretty nebulous, because you could just charge more on a nightly basis and say, sure, have a party, or don't.
Further questions? All right, is the building inspector here to comment?
No, Ron.
All right,
I do have one inquiry, just to be sure we have the record right. You have in your description of what the abutters have told us, is their representation, is their reproduction of your website accurate?
When we created that website 4.5 years ago, we did have like mentions of corporate events, but we've never once had it. So we can alter that too if we need to. We just haven't done it yet because we're in an appeal process.
That
and we're
was
trying to
just the
figure this out.
original idea before vacation rentals were even really a thing.
I
I made
mean,
that website a long time ago.
we did this a long time ago. Our plan was to perhaps move back to Great Barrington and rent it out. My wife grew up there and grew up in that house, in fact. So it was something that I thought of as a marketing tool, but we've never actually taken money or had a corporate event or an event of any kind except family weddings or people who rent. And by the way, to have a wedding, we still mandate a 7-night stay. The family of the wedding has to stay there. It's part of their rental agreement. It's a separate agreement that we've tacked on, but just because we structured it like that with a use and occupancy agreement in addition to an event agreement, because we have always mandated that they get an insurance rider for any liability purposes. We have zero involvement with any vendors that they choose. We don't even refer any beverage or food vendor. Well, we do have some chef referrals, but we have never referred an alcohol or beverage vendor of any kind. So those claims are just baseless.
Any further questions?
Well, I guess I'm just thinking that if there's a 7-day minimum, that you really could have numerous weddings a year. Let's say you sold the place and this was the understanding that it could be used for that, then the next person might crank that up from 4 or 5 weddings a year to 50. I mean, they might. It does seem possible, and it's hard to argue, in my opinion, that that's just a normal sort of family neighborhood use at that point. So you're right that things with this are very nebulous. They're not clear cut, and they run into the kind of seams of what zoning bylaws can and can't accomplish. It's very hard to outlaw Airbnbs, for example. You can't. Not that we want to. I'm just saying that they're hard to not have because there's a lot of use that goes with private property. On the other hand, you have a group of neighbors who are quite upset about the noise and about the idea that it could be a commercial venture in their neighborhood. So,
Excuse me, sir. I do want to mention that we have in our agreements on Airbnb and VRBO and in our private contracts that people are not allowed to have gatherings larger than 25 people in any way. I think it's 20 actually. And that's where we have separate event agreements, and we are consciously not having more than like 1 or 2 a year because they're troublesome. That's not like the base of our dealings with our house there. It's not the backbone of our activity. It's pretty seldom. I'm appealing it because I feel that out of principle, we're being singled out, and out of principle, I'm appealing this. Not because this is like the lifeblood of why we're there. Just to be clear, we would never have a lot of parties there. We know it's not okay to do all the time. These things only happen in summer, or they're always in between Memorial Day and Labor Day, which is the peak period in the Berkshires. We all know this is a heavily seasonal area. This is when people are having gatherings in Great Barrington. We know these things bring a lot of commerce and good things to the town. I know there's some byproducts that are not totally great for everyone, and I do respect the rights to the neighbors to have a peaceful and enjoyable life. It just comes down to, like, God forbid somebody have a party twice a year in summer. And these aren't raves. These are family weddings, and they end promptly. And we've never had a police problem. We've had neighbors that have filed a few complaints, and then when they get a chance like this, they are flooding you with paper complaints. But they don't exist going back years. There isn't some litany of problems, or I would have heard from the police, and I have not.
All right, further questions from board members?
So would you be comfortable, this is, just, I'm gonna have to get, I'll have to come back. I have to plug up my machine here.
Take your time, Carolyn.
Hmm?
And I do want to say I appreciate everyone's time and being heard.
Ron, do you want me to address the letters that you've received for the record?
Please.
Okay, as the board is aware, you've received several letters into the record. One letter in support of the appellants from Asima Mansouri, owner of 143 Herbert Road. That's the property that shares the common driveway that you saw today at the site visit. And 4 letters opposing the appeal. Those letters represent 12 individuals on 8 nearby properties. 1 letter from Kerman, Murray, Barak, the Grants, and the Cables, co-signed letter. Those are all residents of the nearby Cornwall Drive. A letter from Patricia Fulco, 149 Herbert Road, in opposition. 1 letter from Terrence and Joanne Cooney, 148 Herbert Road, in opposition. And 1 letter from John and Ann Migliaccio, 150 Herbert Road. And many or most of these folks are in the audience tonight, Ron, for when you take public comment.
All right, very good. We'll open it up now then if there are no further questions for public comment. And we ask that you not repeat points that previous speakers have made.
So folks, you'll have to raise your hand and then the chair can recognize you. So Ron, you have a hand raised from Rick Cable.
All right, I'll recognize Rick.
You've got some feedback, Mr. Cable. You have to mute one device or the other.
So my name is Rick Cable. I am a resident of Cornwall Drive, 5 Cornwall Drive. So I am a direct abutter. I would like to say that prior use when Abigail's parents lived there is irrelevant to today's issue. I understand that there were family weddings, and family weddings are certainly a welcome event. The Hendersons live in California. They established Manor Lane LLC in 2018 for the purpose of generating business income by renting the property for weddings and for other parties and events, although they tell us now that they have not had those. And it's not an ancillary use of their residence. This is not a tourist lodge. They're not a home business making beeswax candles. The uses for which they rent the property are by their nature disruptive to their neighbors, and it is one reason why it should not be permitted in a residential neighborhood. In their appeal, they ask for permission to be even more disruptive, seeking a grant of extra hours to disturb us. We ask that the appeal be rejected.
All right, thank you, Rick. Others?
There's a Janice Cable.
All right, I'll recognize Janice.
Okay, is that better? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
My name is Janice Cable. I live at 5 Cornwall Drive. We took occupancy of our home at the end of January. We are direct abutters. Our life here has been incredibly disturbed by many events, principally the loud wedding that was held on the evening of June 13th, the previous event. I'd like to make a couple of comments relative to what Mr. Henderson stated. First of all, my husband and I and Mr. Barak were present at the walkthrough of the board today. We were permitted on the property by Mr. Rembold and with the permission of...
That was not, no, you weren't. That was not by my permission. That was trespassing, and I do not want you on my property.
You should be muted, Chris.
Justin, I'm just going to ask you to mute and go through the chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I do thank the board for the opportunity to be there. I'd like to point out, however, that the property line behind my house is at my fence, not the fence that the Hendersons have placed. There was a comment made that they were not in violation of the cease and desist order. In fact, on September 2nd and September 5th, there was a welcome event and a brunch held with a wedding that the wedding itself was moved to an open location in Stockbridge. All of this is available to read on the internet. And on those days, there were numerous cars coming back through the driveway. We have had catering, compressor trucks, tent companies, loud, extremely loud, amplified music that was so disruptive. We had to close our windows and try to go to the front of our house. And by the way, our house is sound insulated. I would also point out that there were numerous complaints made to the police. The second call that I made, which was after 9 o'clock, the police dispatcher did inform me that folks at the property had been notified to shut the music at 8 o'clock in deference to the stated time in the town noise ordinance. That did not happen. The noise did not end until after 9 o'clock. We feel that any kind of commercial venture held here is strictly a commercial venture. The Hendersons do not live in the property. None of their family lives on the property. And this is strictly a commercial venture, whether the events are held inside or outside. There is noise, delivery, trucks, and an improper use of the property in an R2 zone. I feel that they have essentially tried to go over the line whenever they've had the opportunity, and therefore there really should not be any compromise here on any activities on this property. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Janice. Further comment?
I see John Bigliaccio. Sorry for.
I recognize John.
Yeah, everybody, thanks for holding this hearing. My property is my front yard basically is opposite this property. And I have to state that part of the reason why there were not more complaints, certainly from my house and my family, was that we were under the impression that this was a small family kind of activity and gathering, not one for which fees were raised, which is advertised on the website as a commercial venture, and which often went out until 10:30 at night with music loud enough so that we were unable to sleep. So, I think it's disingenuous to be able to sit there and say, well, it's not, and it's just small family weddings. That's a blatant lie. And I will vouch for that. I can show you on September 11th with me taking a video from my kitchen, which faces Hurlburt Road, and clearly being able to hear music from that property. So, whatever they have in their covenants and their contracts is not being enforced. And it's really inappropriate to have this at an R2 zone. We already have two non-conforming commercial ventures. One is the airport, and the other is the Hurlburt construction vehicle yard right next door to my house as well. So we're already taking, giving tolerance to this. And to do it again under the conditions that are specified in the appeal is just ridiculous.
Right. Thank you, John. Further questions or comments?
There are several others. Mr. Bob Grant.
All right, I'll recognize Bob.
Hello, thank you for having this meeting. I appreciate it. So my name is Bob Grant. My wife and I live at 3 Cornwall Drive, and we just purchased our home last year. We've only been in it for a year. We moved from Boston. We have visited the Berkshires in the past. We're looking for a peace and quiet home in the Berkshires. And if we had any thoughts that there was a commercial property behind our house, we never would have purchased this property. And in fact, if we ever were to put it up for sale again, and we would have to be, and if the Hendersons are allowed to continue a commercial venture there, we would have to be transparent to any potential buyers what they're up against. And we certainly don't want to move from our residence. We love living on Cornwall Drive, but we do not want to have our peace and quiet disturbed by a commercial venture next door. I come from a family where my father started the zoning board in Oxford, Massachusetts. I know about zoning laws. They are not complying with what I understand is residential 2 zoning in Great Barrington, and they should cease and desist. So we oppose their appeal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Further comment?
You have Benny Barak.
All right, I'll recognize Betty.
I appreciate the board meeting over this subject. I'm the president of Cornwall Drive, and I'm the longest residing resident, having moved in 2014. I was not really fully aware of what went on at the manor, except we had this unbelievably noisy wedding that even in my home, across the walk, the furthest on the walk, with a soundproof home, the floor vibrated. But what I really want to talk about is the notion that right now, one of the houses is up for sale, and last week they reduced the price already by $40,000. My sense is that this is really something that affects the value of our homes. And I think that is an important issue to be considered here. We are people who came here. I expect here to be here until the end of my life. I retired as a professor, and I found this the most beautiful town where everything happens and everything is right. And I never expected to have a quarrel with a neighbor over an issue as basic as this. Respect your neighbors and accept that we do not appreciate loud noise at night. Most of us are elderly, not all. But this is really not the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comment?
You have Joanne Cooney.
And I'll recognize Joanne.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We live at 148 Hurlburt Road. We have on several occasions noted that there were parties going on in the venue. We assumed it was, we had a similar situation in Washington, D.C. when we lived there, and the people behind us had a pool, and they had a large family, and they would have gatherings. So we thought this was a private home with a family who was part of the community, and that we could be tolerant of parties once in a while. But it was getting more annoying. And then one day when I was coming home, I followed a bus that pulled in to the driveway, and all these people got off this bus with gifts, and I thought, very strange, this looks commercial. And then we saw the cease and desist order, and we were very pleased to see that, because we would have started complaining because we did not think this was a proper use of property in an R2 zoning area. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Further comment?
There's Barbara Barak. Oh, no, the hand went away. Never mind. I don't see any other hands raised. If you're on the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand. There's a total of 21 people in the audience. By the way, I see a Suzanne Eifert.
All right, I'll recognize Suzanne.
1 second, Suzanne. She should be joining in here at any moment.
Okay, you can hear me now, I think.
Yes.
Good evening, Vermont Plain Road. My name is Susan Eifert, and my property abuts the tennis courts. I have lived here for over 22 years, and I have noticed increased traffic in recent years. And like the other individual, I always thought that these were family gatherings that I heard. But they came again with more frequency over the last few years. And there are children in the neighborhood. And I'm concerned about not just the loss of peaceful enjoyment of one's life and property, but also the increased traffic, the speeding traffic, the danger that this presents to the children in the neighborhood. And I'm concerned about this. And I also believe that if this goes through, we don't really have, what if the number even continuing for this time over the years, that can really affect our quality of life. I've got to, consider.
All right, further comments?
There is a Barbara Brock now has the hand raised.
I'll recognize Barbara.
Barbara, you just have to unmute yourself if you're speaking. You want to move on, Ron?
Yes. Anybody else?
There's a Rick Cable and Benny Brock again.
Well, Benny has already commented, right?
Correct.
So we'll go on to, who was the other one?
Unless Barbara is on Benny's account. Do you want to open that up and see?
All right.
Mute. Okay. Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Paula Kerman. I'm at the Barak's house because I don't know how to work the Zoom. So they were kind enough to let me in. I live at number 8 Cornwall Drive. And on the night in question that our homeowners association is complaining about, it isn't just a question of music or noise. The bass was up so high that you could feel it. I think even a deaf person would have felt it in the bones in my head and the sternum. I mean, it was beyond belief. I moved in here a year ago as a recent widow. I've lived in the Berkshires 27 years. I love it here. I consider myself, not a native, but it takes generations to be a native, but someone who cares deeply about this community. I moved here from a more isolated area to be closer to the hospital. I'm 83 years old, and also to be closer to town. I didn't expect when I moved in that I would have to be subjected to this kind of noise. I came here to heal, and that is not possible with this kind of commercial venture going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comment?
Is Barbara speaking on the Benny account?
Barbara? Yes. Yes, I would like to say something.
Ron?
Barbara Barack.
Okay, sure, yeah, go ahead.
6 Cornwall Drive. And there's no provision, I believe, for the town to allow a licensed hotel to operate in a residential area. I really feel like our residential rights are really compromised. We've put in a lot of time, effort, and love into our houses. And now we're facing a situation where not only are we experiencing, the first time I experienced it actually was June 13th. It hasn't been in my memory going on for years, but it's been so disruptive that it's in the summer months when we want to be outside, we want our windows open. I feel like there's a total turnoff in terms of cooperation. They violated the cease and desist. They said there were only 2 complaints. There were many. And I don't feel like they're up for compromise. They've been rather aggressive tonight about what are valid complaints and issues. They've just dismissed them in a very kind of aggressive manner. And so I'm really concerned about our residential rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Do any of the board members have questions for town council? All right, I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Michael? Muted?
I have one question. I'm looking through the table of uses, and I don't see commercial event venue listed as a particular use. Do you have any advice about which of the uses that are on the table we want to refer to as a reference?
I believe, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It actually may be easier if Mr. Rembold answers first.
Okay.
So I'll defer.
Well, I will say that commercial event venue does not appear in the table of uses, but I believe it's defined in the definitions in section 11.
Okay. All right. Pardon me. I'll look at the definitions.
I hope I'm correct.
Indeed it is. Well, commercial amusement, no. It's not.
Not as such.
Okay. There are some listings are analogous, but by that particular label, I don't see it in there.
Okay.
Did you read it or?
You gotta take it off mute.
I'm off mute.
We can hear you, Carolyn.
Okay, did you find it and did you read it?
I did not find it. I did not find a listing for something called specifically, quote, commercial event venue, unquote.
Can you find it, Chris?
No, Michael's correct. There's something called commercial amusement, building structures and premises for indoor and outdoor recreation, including but not limited to fairgrounds for fairs, animal racing, circuses, and other similar
I saw that. Yeah.
But there's not a commercial event venue.
Okay.
Anything further? I'll look for a motion to close the hearing now.
So moved.
Second. Carolyn seconds.
All in favor?
Roll call vote, Ron.
All right. Michael?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
Madonna?
Aye.
Okay, aye. All right. What do we want to do with this?
I don't see this as close. This is in fact a commercial operation. I can see the possibility that something like this might be permitted in this area with a special permit, depending upon how you interpret item 6 under residential uses or another item under other uses, but they don't have a special permit. That's the procedure for putting limitations on, for example, the number of events and the noise and so forth, and they have not done that. I'm inclined to uphold the building inspector.
I agree.
Yes, it just seems that, especially since the neighborhood have expressed their opinions about this, that really, you can have a wedding, but you can't have a gigantic band, blowout and it's just not, it's not fair to the community, to their neighbors, because they are pretty close by, all of them.
All right, I'll look for a motion then.
I move that we affirm the cease and desist order, deny the appeal.
You have a second?
I second it.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
Yes, I think the thing that troubles me is that we are in this ground that's occupied by things like Airbnbs, which you could theoretically rent to a different person every night.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, and they're just going to have a party 365 days a year, then, the zoning board would be completely powerless to do anything about that, because it's just people having a good time and you can't stop that. So that's what troubles me about it. I mean, to me, it's pretty plainly a commercial venture, and we may not have the definition, and perhaps should get that into our zoning bylaw, but it just, it's already, as the neighbors, 7 or 8 neighbors versus one see it as out of control, and the one neighbor who doesn't isn't there a lot. And so, it just seems that it's certainly against the spirit of zoning, even if it isn't against the letter. That's all.
All right, we'll go ahead and vote then on Steve's motion. Carolyn?
Hey, you have a comment maybe from town council, Ron?
Yes.
Oh.
Just very briefly, and this is to the question that was raised with respect to a definition and what's in the bylaw. And section 3.1 of the bylaw does say, as do many zoning bylaws, no land shall be used, no structure shall be erected or used except as set forth in the table of use regulations or as exempted by the general laws. The concept being, if it's not stated as allowed, it is not allowed.
Very good. All right, we'll then vote on Steve's motion. Carolyn?
I vote
My
aye.
motion, sorry.
Steve?
I vote aye.
Donna?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And I myself. All right, thank you. Can I have somebody volunteer to write this up?
I'm looking at Michael.
I haven't done it for a while. I'll write it up.
I'll send you the video recording, Michael, so you can relive the event.
Thank you. We have one other item. We need to approve the minutes from April 20th.
I'm not sure if I sent those to you. It may have been my error. Did you?
I don't have them.
I didn't send them.
What? All right, maybe we'll postpone that till the next meeting.
Trust me, they're fine. No, I'll send them soon.
All right. Does anybody else have anything they want to say? All right.
You have a citizen speak item as usual.
Yeah. Yes. I'll recognize our customer.
Okay, I respect the board's decision. I totally understand the gripes, and I do want to say that we are easily reachable at any time. Any of these people could have reached out to us at any time to talk to us about anything. And the allegation that we're being aggressive, I think, is very hypocritical, because they could have talked to us at any moment, at any time. And they mentioned these ongoing things, but the reality is all these people live in this little enclave together. I owned a parcel in Cornwall. I sold 5 Cornwall Drive to whoever that is. And I know these people. I've seen them there. They are all just talking to each other, and that's why they've come out in a group. And I don't live there, and I didn't have a chance to campaign there for this. So I just wanted to mention that this isn't some overwhelming outpouring of the neighborhood against people renting their house out. And the spirit of all these complaints is about these people's assertion that we shouldn't be allowed to rent our home out. And I'm not sure that that's what this forum was for. I don't think so. This was about weddings or events, not about having people at your house because you rent it to them on Airbnb, which is happening in mass all over Great Barrington in the several hundreds of homes. So, I mean, I respect the board's opinion or the board's ruling. We will alter our website in the coming weeks. We will not hold weddings. We will respect the C&D order. I maintain that I do think this was not an appropriate time for them to be walking onto my property. I did not give permission to do that. That is trespassing. I did not give Chris Rembolt permission to invite other people there. No offense, Chris, but she mentioned you by name. That's ridiculous. If it happens again, I just want everyone to know on the call that I will be pressing charges against them. But it is my property, and it is my right to rent it out. Unless the town says you cannot do Airbnbs and VRBOs, which would crush commerce almost certainly. So we will not have weddings, we will not have events, but we have a house that seats a lot of people, and it's not like other properties that are gigantic with auditoriums, but it is a place where people can gather and have fun. And it's clear from the comments that there's nobody's okay with people having fun. And I'm not saying throw gigantic ragers, but we have never done that, and this has been blown out of proportion. But I do respect the zoning board's opinion. We will abide by it.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Very good. Thank you all. The meeting's adjourned.
Rager.
Rager.
Recording stopped.
Is your thing still on?
Let's see,
Yeah.